Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Office Bloke Daz.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
And here we are, the Office Blokes.
Yes, we are.
Ready to go. Squatters take over America.
Squatters, yeah. I think it's a bit of an issue these days, isn't it?
It's becoming a big issue over here as well. I think I read the other day Gordon Ramsay's restaurant. He's one of his restaurants that got closed, or he closed down. I don't know if he's closing it for refurb or it closed. It's been taken over by squatters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's trying to take them to court or whatever. And it's costing thousands.
I was going to say, usually squatters, I think you have a bit of a job getting them out, don't they, when there's quite a few of them in there. I don't think it's like a sort of 2-minute job, is it? I don't think the police can just... I'm not sure what the rules and regulations are over in the States, but I know over here, I think there is such a thing as squatters' rights, isn't there?
Which is bizarre.
Which it is bizarre, but if it's an empty building not being used, I think they have rights to, to squat for a certain amount of time or something, but I'm not sure how it works over in the States.
Yeah, it's not something that's... I believe in. I think it's a piss take. They need to clear the buildings as soon as possible, especially if someone wants to get back in and renovate and do something.
Well, I've seen programs on it before, and going when squatters have been there, and it looks an absolute mess as well.
They don't look after it,
you know, it's can be pretty. Should
we get into this one? It begins. Squatters take over America.
A growing problem and a nightmare for landlords, squatters, who take advantage of laws that allow them to live rent-free as the lengthy court process plays out.
Squatters, the new virus taking over America, stealing homes people have worked their entire lives to obtain. But what nobody's talking about is that America's squatting epidemic looks like it's being allowed to happen on purpose.
Boarded up windows, shattered glass, and trash everywhere, all the result of squatters in the place. And people living in this Brooklyn neighborhood say not even the police can help.
You've heard and seen the horror stories, intruders gaining entry or breaking into unoccupied homes and residences, in some cases mansions, throwing wild parties and living rent and care-free.
One of the alleged squatters destroyed their security camera. A few months later, another neighbor caught them taking water from her hose through a hole in the fence.
The alleged squatter says he has every right to be here, and he showed me a lease, which he says...
That's one right that you lose. Yeah. If it looks like that, you're out.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if people break in, you should be like, that should be against the law anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing if a door's open, you go in, maybe there's certain rights that people might have, but not that I agree with it. But if you're breaking into somewhere, it's sure it's breaking and entering, and you should be forced out.
There's one thing that bothers me, like more than anything, is untidiness.
Like,
just leaving shit around that shouldn't be there. Throw stuff in the bin, bin stuff off. Don't just leave shit lying around that don't need to be there. Yeah. Right? Clean up, tidy up. There's no reason. Doesn't cost anything to tidy up.
No, costs nothing. Yeah, I get that.
Proves it. But the agent selling this multi-million-dollar estate says that lease is a fake.
Why can't you just change the locks?
Oh, I will be arrested instantly.
They turned off the hot water and then reported that they had no hot water. It's a $250 fine.
The situation intensified when the house caught fire, but it was just the first of 3 fires at this house as recently as last month.
The police came. They cannot do nothing, they said.
So squatters are now wreaking havoc all across the country. But nobody's talking about the real reason this is happening, which is because America has secretly become filled with laws that protect criminals. Not just when they steal from businesses, closing them down, and not just when they attack the police and get released without bail. No, that's not enough. They're also protected when they steal homes and apartments. And most of America, myself included, has been shocked at the brazenness at which this is happening across the country. Because squatters aren't just taking over homes for a weekend of fun. In some cases, they're living in them for months, if not years. And this is raising uncomfortable questions in the minds of many people, like, what's the point of working hard to own a home if it can just be stolen by squatters at the drop of a hat? What's the point of...
There's a big thing in it at the moment with the government about taking away benefits from people who are on benefits for so long. So you only get a certain amount of time now on benefits and they take them away from you. Yeah. And a lot of them, they've got this sick note, I don't know if people have heard about this, but we've got this sick note epidemic in Britain where you don't even have to speak to a doctor to get a sick note from work.
That's right, yeah.
You can just phone up, you can go online, fill in a few questions, and you get a sick note saying it's mental health and all that.
Yeah.
And people are coming out, and I saw a thing last week, and he did an interview with some kind of families on the news, and one guy said, I don't want to work. He went, why not? He went, why would I want to work? He said, all that stress of having to go get up in the morning and go to a job. He said, I get just as much money from the government. And I'm like, he should just be taken straight off. No more money for you.
But that's the culture, isn't it? That is the culture. You know, get something dead easy, then people are happy with that. They don't want to go out to work and stuff like that.
And it all started during the pandemic when when people started working from home and all that, and then we had furlough schemes.
And they weren't going to doctors because of the pandemic. So Yeah,
Madness,
correct.
right?
They're doing that. Also, why is it that nobody in charge seems to be taking this issue seriously? And most importantly, has America gone from being a country that respected individual achievement and success to demonizing it by allowing the law-abiding to become prey for crooks and scumbags? Well, we're going to answer those questions, but first it's important to understand that squatting has exploded as a national crisis so quickly that it's going to erase the American dream faster than anyone's prepared for. So squatting, a big problem all over the country, but it's especially bad in progressive cities like New York. And that's alarming because laws passed in places like this tend to make their way to other progressive parts of the country, if they haven't already. Either way, squatting here is such a disaster, it's making many property owners wish they owned nothing at all.
Dirty dishware, idle ATMs. This property on 67th Street in Diker Heights looks like the worst yard sale you've ever seen. Neighbors say it's been like this for months, ever since a group of squatters moved in.
So here we have the latest house of horrors, which has been commandeered by squatters, turning it into an absolute dump, which is what most squatters do with homes they commandeer. But even though the people in the home are living like absolute criminals, there's no law in this city that will remove them from that property. And that's because in cities where squatters' rights have taken over, they've replaced the laws of that city or town with the rules of finders, keepers. And what that basically means is that if you find yourself a place to live and you end up inside of it, you can stay there because you found it. Because there's a chance that when your landlord calls the police on you, they're just being a greedy jerk who wants to evict people, which progressive laws assume would be happening left and right if it weren't for squatters' rights. Now, I'm not saying that's never happened, but horrifying stories like this just keep getting worse for reasons that make zero sense.
Neighbors say last summer, one of the alleged squatters destroyed their security camera with a piece of plywood. A few months later, another neighbor caught them taking water from her hose through a hole in the fence.
I saw the hose that was connected to my water fountain, and I disconnected.
So the reason that squatting is out of control in places like New York versus a place like Florida is because of all the other crimes people can commit and get away with without any punishment. Let's take destroying a security camera. That's someone else's property. If you break it, you should have to pay for it or replace it or be punished. Yet in this city, nothing seems to happen. It's the same deal with stealing your neighbor's water.
You think with squatting in somewhere like a place like New York City, they'd be right on top of it because it's prime real estate, isn't it?
I was just going to say, I mean, New York City, you think there won't be that many properties to squat in because, like I say, it's prime real estate.
Yeah.
And I mean, how many places are empty for that long in New York City?
Right, imagine if you go places like Queens or
bit further out,
Brooklyn, places, different areas, not just Manhattan.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I guess
different
so,
places like that. There might be a few different because that one they were referring to there, I think, was in Brooklyn, wasn't
That's
it?
right, yeah.
But you're still prime real estate in the world.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how much real estate is worth more than what you've got in New York, really.
But surely these people are most of the time they're just breaking in.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it could be wrong, but I mean, you think if you're breaking in, you're breaking in.
People try to take shit that's not theirs.
Yeah,
horrible.
Which they pay for, not you. Never mind that the person stealing the water is living in a place that probably has the water shut off because the owner can't pay the bills. But hey, maybe they're thirsty. Maybe they want to baptize somebody. Better not punish them. It might just make the criminal's life worse. And we wouldn't want that to happen in this city, would we?
The situation intensified in November when the house caught fire, but it was just the first of 3 fires at this house as recently as last month.
The police came, they cannot do nothing, they said.
I spoke to the property.
So not only do squatters terrorize the entire neighborhoods they're squatting in, they also commit other types of crime inside the house that they've stolen. For example, whatever they did inside that place to start fires was probably illegal, but at this point, now that the home is a half burned down dump, the best thing the owner can hope for is that the building burns to the ground and he collects some insurance money. But think of the disincentive this has created for people to own homes and try to better their lives on their own. What's the point of doing that if it can all be destroyed and taken from you by people who are protected by bad laws? Look at this. Last month, a homeowner found squatters in her apartment. She called the police, who promptly arrived, sided with the squatter, and arrested the homeowner because this person said they lived there without a lease or any paper trail to prove it. She was arrested because she changed the locks on a squatter, taking away their right to the place they had stolen from her. And think of the nightmare this creates for police. There are so many activists in New York City that...
How come it can work in a house but not a car?
Yeah.
So you can take a car and go, no, it's my car. I found it on the side of the road there. No one was in it. And now I'm in it.
Yeah.
It's mine.
So it's mine.
Yeah. It's the same premise, isn't it, really?
It's owning something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be mobile or static or something? It shouldn't really matter, should it? So,
Take a police car. No one's in it.
Yeah.
I know. I'd go into a police station when there's no one there.
Exactly. Yeah, squat in a police station. That's what they should do, innit?
And if the police were to kick the wrong person out of an apartment, they'd be prosecuted and protested against. Yet nobody wants to stick up for the homeowners. And this, as you're about to see, is leading to the predictable destruction of America's middle class.
My tenants only pay me 1 month's rent. They know the game. They know after 30 days, you cannot evict them.
No court case should go 7 years.
Why can't you just change the locks?
Oh, I will be arrested instantly.
They turned off the hot water and then reported that they had no hot water. It's a $250 fine, punishable by 5 years in jail.
You know, at some point, we're going to have to come to an agreement that things aren't exactly fair for property owners. That one guy said people moved into his apartment, paid him rent for 1 month. After 30 days, squatters' rights kick in and nobody can kick you out except for a judge in housing court. But the problem there is that housing court is so backed up. Even if you rent a beautiful 2-bedroom apartment like this for $5,400 a month and stop paying rent, the landlord's not going to get that rent as a judgment against you. The best they'll get is possession when the judge eventually kicks you out 6 to 8 months after you stop paying, and that's a good result for a landlord. But wait, things get even worse because there are laws in New York that will punish a property owner who fails to maintain what is someone else's residence, which means that even if squatters have taken over your apartment in the case of a property like
Proper piss sake. You're living there rent free, right? You're not paying, you're smashing the place up, no doubt, and then you go, oh, can you come around? My electricity's not working. Got a leak in the window.
Come round and sort it out.
Come and fix it. Yeah.
I mean, that place before as well, they, adding it up quickly, probably lose about $30,000-$40,000 in rent as well. Yeah. Because of the 6 months or so it takes to, get it to court and everything. So they're not going to get that back, are they?
No. So that's what you're saying. They're not going to give it back. Exactly. Or you're going to get his possession.
Yeah. Absolutely unbelievable.
Bang out of order, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like this, the owner would still have to pay the heat, they'd still have to keep the hot water going, and the failure to do that could result in fines that they pay because squatters took over their place and stopped paying for it. And what's also stupid is the tenant could shut off one of those services and then file a complaint against the owner to delay their eventual eviction, all while the courts in the city back up and protect those squatters. And the reason this is so crazy to imagine is it's like the people running New York City think to themselves that there's no way the landlord of a $1 million property in New York could ever be the victim of anything. They've made it, right? Therefore, it's impossible for crimes to be committed against them, even by the worst of society. And you want to know what the unintended consequence of bad policy like this ends up being? Well, the result of all these squatters' rights has created a situation where landlords are afraid to rent to anybody. And if you want to know why it's so hard to find an apartment in New York City, part of that has to do with the fact that after the landlord gives it to you, they're never gonna get it back.
Hong Chen has spent thousands trying unsuccessfully to get the squatters out of this home in Maspeth. John Sokran using his pension money for expenses on this College Point home he hoped would provide retirement income. And Susan Mascara, who's used up her savings paying for...
Now, what's sad is that the people being hurt the most by these squatting laws, they're people that are what we would consider to be average Americans. These are people, maybe they have one home with a second apartment attached to it. Maybe they have 2 homes, one of which they inherited, one of which they bought and decided to rent out. But they're being destroyed financially by people who have essentially stolen from them. And part of the reason things are so bad for these small-time landlords is that the city actually offers free eviction-related legal assistance. Look at this. If you're being evicted, say, for not paying your rent and being a squatter, you can speak to an attorney for free and the taxpayer pays for it. Now, have these tenant-friendly laws ever helped anyone? Of course they have. But it doesn't seem fair that we're not providing free legal assistance to landlords who have been victimized by squatters. And while the squatters are in court with a free lawyer, the homeowner still has to pay to maintain that property. They got to pay all the utilities while it's being destroyed by the people who turn it into a dump. Now, defenders of squatters would say that these are isolated incidents, and they would say that you normies who are blowing this out of proportion, you guys are the crazy ones. The squatters haven't done anything to you. But the problem nobody wants to admit is that even if squatters take over an apartment like this, it damages every other apartment in the building, every other home on the block.
Squatters terrified this woman who lived next door to this white stone home.
7:30 in the morning, there'd be people on the front lawn drinking beers. Different cars from different states showing up, and then license plates being swapped. It was frightening.
So let me ask you a question. If you went and saw a home or an apartment and you found out squatters were living somewhere else in that building or somewhere else on that street, would you feel comfortable buying that home? And is it the American dream to live next to a crime scene? Most people would say no to that, especially in a city where the squatters could be in that apartment for months, if not years. And even in a rental building where the other units aren't for sale, think of what this does to the landlord's ability to earn a living from that building. If you've got one set of squatters in one apartment and they start destroying everything, people are gonna move out. They're not gonna wanna live near that. They're gonna complain. They're gonna be gone. But critics say even the best
loving this guy's camera work.
He puts them everywhere, doesn't he?
Yeah. It's just great the way he's talking through the railings and everything. I love it. I like this guy.
He's good, isn't he?
Yeah.
Solutions being put forward now for how to deal with this still miss the mark completely.
Councilwoman Vicky Palladino says part of the solution is to change the law, which allows people to claim squatters' rights after living in a place for 30 days.
They own the property and they have no rights. Squatter rights? Oxymoron. Squatters have no rights.
So she is 100% correct. But even though these solutions are probably the best New York City is ever going to get, they're still not the real way to tackle squatters, and here's why. Even if you extend the length of time it takes for someone to become a squatter, you still haven't tackled the ultimate problem that landlords here are dealing with. And that problem has to do with the fact that people who squat are stealing a working AC. That's one of the treasures of the New York City rental market. But the thing that nobody wants to talk about is that if you don't pay for something and it's not yours, that is stealing. But progressive justice works by not punishing non-violent crimes, and not paying rent is a non-violent crime, right? And there's a lot of non-violent crime that doesn't get punished here. Shoplifting's another great example, and we're looking at how well that's working out with malls and stores closing right here in the city. And many critics say that the idea of not punishing non-violent crime is an absolute disaster, and that's why we have rampant crime all over the place. But just as progressive justice experiments have been going on all across the country, there is now about to be a new experiment taking place in the state of Florida.
We are in the state of Florida ending the squatter scam once and for all.
Governor Ron DeSantis announced Wednesday he's cracking down on squatters. He signed House Bill 621, which will increase penalties for squatters and provide property owners swift remedies for squatting.
So this new law that's been...
Let them squat in prison.
Yeah. Absolutely,
You
yeah.
can squat there for as long as you want.
I mean, I get people who are homeless and sometimes they might be desperate, but I mean, clearly it's gone too far in some places, hasn't it? Just letting them get away with it and not being able to evict them or anything.
Listen,
like that.
if I had an empty house and I walked in, there was a homeless guy there, and he was just a mattress in the corner, and him like curled up in a bag or whatever. I'd be like, mate, you need to go, and he went, fine. Yeah, no damage to the property. No
That'd
issues.
Be the end of it.
What's that be the end of it? Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
If someone's going, you can't throw me out, and there's holes in the wall, and there's all shit all over the place.
Yeah, your back door's broken down because he's broken it down to get in there in the first place.
That's not acceptable.
No, absolutely not. No.
Passed in Florida is kind of the opposite of a squatter's rights law, and only time will tell if it stops the squatting epidemic that's been taking place. And the real estate world will be watching closely to see if landlords abuse laws like that to get rid of tenants they don't like. But one thing's for sure, this is the type of law that many people right now in a state or a city like New York who have been stuck with a squatter wish existed.
Owners can request law enforcement immediately remove a squatter if the person has unlawfully entered, has been told to leave the property by the owner but refused, and if that person isn't a current or former tenant.
So there is no perfect law, but it looks like middle-class residents and any resident that owns a piece of property now has a way to defend it against those who would take it. But it's got some caveats. And even now that this is passed, you won't get rid of every squatter in the state of Florida. First, you can't just call the cops and have them kick somebody out. And the aggrieved homeowner will have to prove that this person is in the apartment without permission. And they'll have to prove that they asked them to leave and they refused. Only then will the police get involved. And the big loophole with this law is that it doesn't apply to someone who is the current or former tenant, meaning if somebody moves in and their plan is to game the system, they'll still be able to. By, for example, paying rent for 1 month and then stopping.
Justin Melcarrick of Winter Park says last year, squatters wreaked havoc on their block for 5 months.
We did not get a lot of sleep for those 5 months, that's for sure.
He said the person who owns this home doesn't live here.
You know, things are so bad all over the country. I feel like a law like this needs to be tried somewhere so that people can see what happens. But the interesting thing about it is that a landlord who wants to get rid of a squatter has to fund the entire police operation, which results in officers going to the property, removing someone, and keeping the peace. They've got to pay the hourly rate for that, which I guess is a check and a balance on this process not being totally abused for free by the worst property owners in that state. But in this state, we've got similar laws on the table. Will they work?
All we want to do is close the loophole in the law to say to residents, if you don't have right, if you don't have a lease, if you don't have payment of rent, then you do not get to stay. You are a trespasser and you'll be removed from the property.
So the big question that I have about this type of law passing in New York is how are the progressive courts going to interpret it? How are they going to prosecute people under it? And will the police be too scared to actually take any action to get rid of squatters? And this has people asking, why are we drawing a fundamental difference between squatters who break into an apartment and decide to start living there versus squatters who sign a lease and then do the exact same thing? And should the passage of time change the definition of squatting to tenancy? And is squatting stealing? What do you think? Thanks for watching. I'll see you.
Yeah, I think there is a fine line, I guess, what you're saying there when it comes to that. The people I'm talking about with squatters are the ones that had no right to be in that building in the first place. No, not a tenant that's sort of like playing the game.
But by the same token, though, I think paying a month's rent and then not paying it, I think you should also automatically then be called a squatter.
Yeah,
because you're not paying the rent that you're supposed to be paying for a service, aren't you? Paying for the room or whatever.
I've seen people do it over here where they've not paid rent, and what they've done is I've seen them arguing and saying, "Well, I've been waiting for the roofs to be fixed, and he's not fixed it, so I'm not paying rent until the roof's fixed."
I think that's one of the legal things that they said. Do it if they're in a legal battle with the landlord. I think that's slightly different. I think that would fall into that category maybe.
So it's one of them. But I think if someone goes into a home where, at the end of the day, if someone's going to rent a place from you, if you're a tenant, if you're a landlord and you're renting a place to a tenant, you've got to do background checks on them to make sure, number one, they're financially secure, financially stable, and they're able to pay, obviously, a deposit that goes down for a couple of months or whatever it may be, and do it that way.
Is there a record somewhere that they can look at for, like, when they've had previous rental properties, previous sort of rental sort of like history?
Yeah, you normally go to someone's like I don't think there's a shared site or anything like that.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I think someone actually pitched that on Dragon's Den.
Oh, really?
Like a shared site for renters. Yeah. Because you don't get anything you do as well on your credit file doesn't go against renting. So if you're a renter,
right,
when you pay rent, it doesn't go against your credit file, I believe.
Ah, right.
So,
okay.
But there's one of them where I think the idea is if you're going to rent somewhere, you get references from previous landlords.
I mean, I'm guessing if it's the first time you're renting, it's going to be a bit more difficult, isn't it? But then you have to have maybe referees to okay it and say
it's good to know that the USA is just as effed up as our country.
Yeah, no, but
at
least
the same shit laws.
Yeah, but at least in Florida they look like trying to do something at least.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's one to keep an eye on. That definitely. Interesting.
Hope you guys enjoyed that. Something a little bit different. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you on the next one.
Cheers.